Hey there, my name's Kevin Songco, and I'm the producer for Group 1. Our presentation will be over Europe. We'll be going over key terms, which was done by Hannah Labelle, an overview of Europe, which was done by Justin Davis, a current event that's happening in Europe, which is done by Stone Elliot, and finally we'll have two discussion questions at the end, which were done by Hilary and Anonyei. Three key terms from the textbook that we decided to use were the European Union, or EU, which is an economic and political association of certain European countries as a unit with internal free trade and common external tariffs. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was founded in 1949 and is between the United States, Canada, most of the European countries west of the Iron Curtain, and Turkey. Finally, we have nationalism, which has two definitions according to the textbook: identification with one's own nation and support for its interests, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interest of other nations, and the second definition is advocacy of or support of the political independence of a particular nation or people. So, Europe is a subcontinent of the significantly larger Eurasian landmass, which makes it technically not a continent. However, according to the textbook on page 89, Europe is recognized as a region distinct from the rest of Eurasia. Europe also is defined by our textbook as a political region made up of countries lying west of Turkey, Russia, and three of the former republics of the Soviet Union: Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova. It's right over here. Now let's zoom in on that area and do a quick overview. First off, demographics. According to the textbook on page 80, Europe has a population of about 542 million people living in a regional space that is only about half as large as the United States lower 48. On page 93 of the textbook, it says that Europe was the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, and thus progressed through the demographic transition model sooner than most regions of the world. The largest urban regions of Europe are currently in the last stage of the demographic transition model, with their populations declining because of a lower birth rate than death rate. Now, because of declining populations, states like Germany have been allowing a large number of refugees. According to Fortune.com, in an interview with German officials, they're doing this in the hope that the new immigrants will prevent the German economy from slowing its growth. Moving on to religion. According to the textbook on page 106, religion in modern-day Europe is on the decline, as Europeans have become increasingly secularized in recent decades. However, the dominant religion group in Europe is Christianity. Christianity originally took root in Europe within the Roman Empire, and then spread rapidly as a result of Rome officially adopting the religion in the early 4th century. Roman Catholicism was the dominant religion in Europe throughout the Middle Ages, as efforts to proselytize pagans proved to be successful. Of course, there are several other religious groups that exist in Europe. The most prominent are Islam and Judaism. Islam established its foothold in Europe during the 8th century as much of the Iberian Peninsula fell under the control of the Umayyad Caliphate. Judaism, according to the textbook on page 108, first reached Europe as a result of the Romans expelling the religion's followers from Palestine in the 1st century. Let's talk about colonialism. Europeans are more so than any other group in the world responsible for shaping our modern-day world because of their efforts at colonialism in the early modern period. According to foreignaffairs.com, between 1914 and 1942, Europeans conquered 84% of the globe. This conquest of the planet is why European culture is so prevalent throughout much of the globe. European colonialism carved up all of the Americas, all of Africa, almost all of Indochina, all of India, and large parts of the Middle East. Europe also had some dominance over China in the 19th century. European colonialism is also responsible for massive cultural, linguistic, and religious exchanges, as well as massive exchanges of wealth from the conquered regions to Europe. Now let's get current. Our current event will be over Brexit and the article Who Voted for Brexit? A Comprehensive District-Level Analysis by Sasha O. Becker, Thimer Fetzer, and Dennis Novi. So an intro to Brexit. It basically makes Britain, instead of right here next to Europe, they're all the way over here by themselves. Just kidding. In June 2016, UK voters decided to break away from the European Union. The interesting part is that many people expected a close vote with victory going to Remain. However, that wasn't the case. More on that later. There is no doubt that the results of Brexit will make a big impact on the economy of the UK and EU. So why Brexit? Well, Brexit focuses on two major issues. First, the economic burden of the European Union, and second, the change in European immigration as the EU grows. With these issues in mind, the article examines the voting population by focusing on 4 ideas that would influence the voters: EU exposure through immigration, trade and structural funds, local public service provision and fiscal consolidation, demography and education, economic structure, wages, and unemployment. So who voted? You know how I said that many people expected a close vote with victory going to Remain? Well, Britain pulled a fast one, and to a surprise, 51.9% of people in Britain voted to leave the EU. That's roughly 17.4 million people. As we can see on the map on the right, inner-city regions were generally in favor of remaining in the EU, while most regions fell in 40 to 60% in favor of leaving. Scotland, which is the northern part of Britain, was in favor of remaining in the EU throughout the vote, and the majority of less dense English areas voted to leave. So in conclusion of Brexit, a very obvious trend in Leave voters was a population that would have trouble adjusting to change. This group was generally older and had poorer access to public services and was less educated. We can also see that examining how the people react to the issues can help draw conclusions in other parts of the European region. For example, France and Germany are also heavily impacted by immigration at the moment and have potential to be more financially sound without connections to the newer, weaker members of the European Union. Finally, we have our discussion questions. So the first one, how is the divide between Muslim immigrants in Europe and the English Europeans similar to the tension Muslim immigrants face in the United States today? And do you see similarities or a trend happening? Second, if devolution did not occur, do you think that Europe would be more economically influencing of the US? And do you think that Europe would have kept the territories/colonies that they had in America, and why?